There's four of us that came together a couple of years ago, I guess it was. And anyway, the people that came together was Keyman, Coyote, Roberto Garcia, Michael Ben, and myself. And the reason this came to being was a lady came and called me on the phone and said she couldn't get Indian health care at Chapade. I'm going to tell her the name, Chapade. And I asked her why, and she says, well, I'm a direct descendant of Geronimo. And they took Geronimo's citizenship away, his BIA number away, so we don't have no proof. So I said, man, we need to go on the radio or someplace and tell this story. So better yet, let's go to IPD and we'll start. And then people started calling me. And they called me from all over. And from Arizona to South Dakota, all over the place they called. And so that's how we first started this. And the first year was 16 direct descendants. So we thought we'd go with direct descendants of famous and maybe not so famous Indians, but we all had a story. We all have this story that needs to be told. We believe it's part of the healing process that needs to be done so indigenous peoples can move on. And so that's kind of how we got it started, and it's turned into a whole day of it. I mean, it's great. And
I was moved this afternoon to ask everyone here, except the descendants, because they already know this, to stand and to recognize the honor that we all have, the power that we are gifted to be with and to see today with these descendants.
my name is Don Ryberg. I'm the chairman of the Chayaka Maidu. My direct descendancy is a famous man in my land, my part of the world, and his name is Henry Shipes. He was born in 1858. He was a mountain of a man. He believed that he had the power of two people, white man and an Indian. And he did some extraordinary feats. One of his greatest feats was he outrun a racehorse for 100 yards. And he fought a grizzly bear with a knife and won. He fought off mountain lions. He's done everything. He was. My mother told me a story about him. They were out driving around when he was probably 70 years old and had a flat tire. My dad didn't have a jack, of course, so he picked the car up, changed the tire, and went on their way. But that's not all. He also took that power of two people into the spirit world. And he fought with bad spirits, the dark side, and he won. And that is, to me, is probably the greatest thing that he had done. I believe today that the power of two people again can do anything. Indian and non-Indian coming together can do what Henry did. If we could do that today, it would be great. But first, we got to get the tribes together. And look at this beautiful scene here with the teepee and the bark house. People, Indian people coming together. To me, that's what it's all about. We have to start there. And once we're able to do that, then nobody can stop us, right?
Oh, patient won't believe me, eh? I am Sparrow Eagle. My father is Richard Swallow, Sparrow Eagle. He is the chief of the state, one of the chiefs of the state of South Dakota. And my great grandfather was Conquering Bear. And my other grandfather is Chanup Yuha, Chief Two Sticks. And down from there would be Sparrow Eagle, which my father comes from. And most of you know my grandpa, David Swallow Sr. I wear this hat here to represent where I come from. On the front, I have a medicine wheel, and it represents all of the colors in the world: the black people, the white people, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Mexicans, along with the red, the Lakota brothers, and I always tell everybody that I'm a Lakota Sioux, and sometimes I hear my brother, he always says, don't say you're a Sioux, just say you're Lakota, because a long time ago, the French, when they came and attacked us, they say that we're like a rattlesnake, we bite back. So Sioux is a French word for snake. But I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. So, yeah. And that's why I say I'm a Lakota Sioux. And a long time ago, my father would always tell me, when you say you're a Lakota, Lakota means God's child. That's what that Lakota means. So I'll put it all together, you get Lakota Sioux, and that's what I'm proud of. And that's what I carry.
Oh, my name is Jacob Isaacson. My grandfather and grandmother were up on stage earlier, Lillian and Joe Rogers. My grandmother is a descendant of Wovoka, and we always, just knew him as Jack Wilson, Uncle Jack. He was a man who had a vision, right around the time our people were starting to lose a lot of their ways, and up until the 1900s that there was a bounty on Indians' heads, so, we were facing a lot of tough times. And this prayer, this dance, it swept the West Coast, and it's carried on, since then, underground, and, for a long time we weren't able to practice, these ways to pray to our Creator, and this is a very simple dance. You just, it's a circle dance like we did earlier, and we hold hands and we come together and we pray. My great-great-great-grandfather is Jack Wilson, known as Wovoka, and he had this vision. He went up into the hills, and they say he traveled to the spirit world and was given this dance to bring back to the people.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'd like to say mitakuyasi to all my relatives. And my name is Leola One Feather. I'm from a place called Wounded Knee, and I come from the band of today we know as Oglala. And I am from the Makaha Tioshpaye, of which this morning I told my grandfather is Nupala, which means two and two. And we come from the people of the twin, like Richard shared with you earlier. And going back, we're going to go back to about 1833 or so, where many of our great leaders were born. Red Cloud. Before we even mention the name of Crazy Horse, we offer tobacco. We make a prayer, because these are very sacred, holy men to us who were selected by the Creator with a very explicit set of directions on how to keep our people alive. So the same went through our grandmothers. I'm very proud of my mom, My mom was a full-blood, dark-skinned, black-haired, fluently speaking in 3 dialects, could tan any kind of hide there was, except, I guess, my school principal. And that was my job as a little girl, was to learn how to earn money to buy school clothes, because we didn't have no welfare, and we come from a great chief, and we don't want no kind of welfare to be handed to us, because that man who's doing that, he's really stealing our money, and he's giving us pennies, so we know that. So our family never lived that way. My mom had a hunter. They brought her hides. I learned how to soak these hides in tub, and the sacred fire here, the ashes, we use everything up till it's all gone, because we don't want to leave a dirty place for our grandchildren to grow. And even the hair, we would take it and wash it and make a hole so that the hair would go back into the earth, and if we needed it later on for stuffing or something, we knew right where that little place is where we hid it. So I have booby traps in my yard, warn you. So yeah, so that was how my mom raised me, and I'm a mixed blood. But I can talk with my cousin over there, Ronnie, and my cousin Richard here, and my Uncle Charles over there, and it's really good to be able to speak my language and talk to Creator from my heart, because this language we speak, each and every one of our nations in this country, God gave us this language, and He gave us an environment that speaks to us, that these trees that look so silent, well, they're not so silent when that wind is moving. And you better be careful, it might break and hit you in the head, So we really respect all of that environment. And when I grew up with my grandma, the chief's daughter, and she conducted herself like a chief. Anyone who came to our home was waited on, food was given to them. And one day, when she was teaching me how to gather wood, she said, "You never cut green wood. Get that rope, and we're going to go rope some tree branches." I thought that was cool. I thought, gee, it's kind of like those cowboys. They rope cows and stuff. So we went down to the creek, and my grandma roped the tree and pulled it down and fell on my head and knocked me out. So next she was crying, sitting there mopping up the blood off my forehead, crying, thinking she killed me. And my mom came down and said, "I killed my granddaughter." But I came back to life. So anyway, that was my experience down at the creek with Grandma. And she was really fast. I mean, she was like in her late 70s when I was a baby. And man, if my uncles acted up, that Grandma could lift her skirt and she could catch you in a minute and do a diving tackle on you if you got mouthy, So that's the kind of grandmas I come from. And you couldn't fool her either, because she had these little eyes that could pierce through you and X-ray vision your brain. So we learned not to lie. And then she said, if you steal, you're going to get all these spots all over your hands. And she said, "See that one white man storekeeper, do you ever look at his hands?" And I thought about that, Yeah, so my family always found a way to entertain us and keep us happy, because we didn't have TV. We had Grandma, and she would weave these stories in and out so colorfully that I'm really good at really descriptively criticizing my enemies, because my grandma taught me how. She said, "That mangy man, when he came over here, that rancher down the road over here, see him? His oxen were all full of scabs and sores under the yoke, and my brothers went over there and they kept him alive. And today we get along with him." So that's what they did when they knew a change was coming, and they had to accept the people who had come. So what they actually did was they turned them into Indians, They made them think our way, because that's the only way to live with the land. What Chief Two Sticks did was he went with one of my other grandfathers, Tutu, and they wanted their cattle from the Texas Cattle Company. And what they were doing was giving us the really bad meat, and they were keeping the rest for themselves. So they went with nuggets of gold as big as a baseball to buy their own cattle, and that rancher shot at them. So what they did was the other warriors went back, and they took the whole herd, and they had a battle that day with ranchers and killed them. So for 13 days afterward, they had a battle with what is now the National Guard, They were the home guard. And one a day is what they took because they were starving us. And for that reason, one day when they took him into the federal system in Deadwood, South Dakota, they sold tickets for a nickel to come and watch the viewing of the hanging of Chief Two Sticks. So that's how he died. And then they dug him up and they started selling his bones to collectors so that it's almost like having a war trophy. And they did the same to Chief Few Tails. And about 11 years ago, I brought Chief Few Tails home. And he was killed also by posse. So this war never ended for a long time for us. And we want it to end because we know that there's no one's going to win if we don't get along. So I wanted to bring that up. Thank you. Takuyasi.
My name is Guarionex, and I'm a descendant of the Taino people. And they came from a place called Borinquen, and it's in the Caribbean. The Europeans called it Richport, Puerto Rico. And I'm going to sit down because I don't like to stand and look at all you guys and hear the echo. So I'm going to do it this way. First of all, to Chairman Ryberg and the Chayak Maidu. Thank you for accepting me in this place. I'm an immigrant in your land. Columbus came and Guacanagari, my namesake's grandfather, dreamed that they were coming. So they were well aware. But they thought that the people who were coming were normal human beings, people you could get to know and live with. But it turned out not to be that way. Most of the Taino died within the first 40 years. Disease and exploitation. They were enslaved. The gold was stolen. They never took gold. They knew where the gold was, and they picked it up from the streams, but they never took it out of the earth. Because the gold represented their ancestors. The spirits of the ancestors sank back into the ground and became so dense and so fine that it became gold. Guarionesh was a cacique. A cacique isn't like a chief. A cacique is a spokesperson for his people. I think Chairman Ryberg understands that role pretty well. It's like everybody's got a piece of you. The warrior society, the women's society, the grandmothers, everybody is telling you how it's supposed to be, and it's your job to make it that way. You didn't have to be a Taino to be a Taino. Taino means noble person. And there was lots of Caribs and Caguay who became Taino. There was a famous one, Caonabo. And he was half Carey and half Taino. And he was a great warrior, and he resisted the Spanish quite well for a long time. But nonetheless, we know how this works. The weapons of war are not familiar to a people of peace. When we struggled for a moment, and We repented. We knew that killing, you paid a great price for that. You had to face your enemies before you passed on as part of the passage. So we didn't take killing lightly. We were dreamers. We knew when we had found a beautiful place, a perfect place, and we lived in harmony with it. We had a common mother. Her name is Zatabe. You know her as Mother Earth and a variety of other names. We had a great spirit, Juka Ugwama Bagwa Maorokoti. Juka Ugwama means the provider of food. Bagwa means ruler of the sea. And Maorokoti means one without ancestors. Atabe had a close friend whose name was Huracan. Huracan is hurricane. Sometimes hurricane can be just a breeze, and sometimes he blows things completely away. I'm grateful for the circle of the spirit of the people, because we share a common spirit. We share a common desire, one for peace, one for wholeness, one for the earth to be, how do I put it, healed, so that we can live in harmony with it. Thank you for listening.
My name is Thomas Sullivan, Thomas Patrick Sullivan, and I'm a Mohawk. And that's my Mohawk name. And I asked my mother, how is it that I got the name Thomas Patrick Sullivan? She said, when you opened your eyes, they were blue, so we knew you were Thomas Patrick Sullivan. My mother, on my mother's side, and earlier we had gave a good introduction about the Mohawk Nation. We are what our mother is. Right? And my mother, we could trace our lineage back to the 1600s. I mean, I went to her one time and I said, Mom, do you realize when you married Dad that we had thousands of years of history of being Mohawk? What made you marry Dad? I don't know. I don't know why. Well, my mother and Richard Oakes' mother, my aunts and uncles, were products of the residential school. They were taken away young. They went to the residential schools. My uncle remembered the language. He remembered all 6 languages of the Haudenosaunee. And they spoke it in the residential schools, and that's how they survived. And they did ceremonies in the residential schools whenever the priests were not around. And Richard Oakes was a product of that too. And when we were young, I live in Syracuse, New York, and Syracuse is kind of halfway between New York City and Philadelphia, and Ganawaki, Akwesasne, Ganasadago. And it was a stopping off point. So we always had Indians that were coming and staying at our house and going. And Richard and Leonard, his brother, would often come and stay. And we would listen at nighttime to the elders talk. That's where we learned our stories. We learned our tradition. We learned our history. They thought we were sleeping, and we were in there listening all the time. But I think they knew it. It was just a way of quieting us down. But we couldn't quite understand as kids, and we were more than cousins. We were brothers. And we couldn't understand the drinking and the fighting that went on when we were young. Always at a wedding or at a funeral or something, we always wondered, where is this coming from? We couldn't understand that. But as time went on and our parents got older, we began to understand because wisdom came with age.
Hello, my name is Spirit Hawk. I am the great-great-great-great-grandson of Sitting Bull. chief and medicine man of the Hunkpapa band of Lakotasu. In 2005, I was injured at work by a cement truck. I suffered a traumatic brain injury. I was in a rehab hospital for 2 years before coming home. I am doing lots of therapy to get better. Lifting weights, swimming, and horseback riding are some of my favorites. The spirit called Spirit Hawk came to heal me, then he gave me his name. I am very proud to carry the name Spirit Hawk. Thanks to the love and support of the Great Spirit, my family, and friends, I have the courage to keep working hard and fighting. I continue to improve all the time. I would like to tell you about my family, who taught me about the ways of my people and helped me become who I am today. My mother, Virginia Groover Johnson, shared with me her love of animals. She had me on a horse when I was a baby, which turned into great respect and love of horses. Even now this wheelchair can't keep me away. My papa, Jack McCarson Sr., was always a warrior. He lied about his age so he could join the Air Force when he was 14 years old. He went to Clark Air Force Base, where he learned to fly B-17 airplanes. He was a POW and survivor of the Baton Death March. My papa passed away in 2006. I am very proud of him and miss him very much. My great-grandmother, May Little Flower Sharp, was a hunter until the day she died, at age 87. We called her Gigi. She called us her grandbabies. She always said to have beans and rice in the pantry for hard times, and you can never have too much venison in the freezer. She was known as the feistiest great-granddaughter of Sitting Bull. My Gigi taught me the pride and wisdom of my ancestors. Sitting Bull was a noble chief, a brave warrior and a respected medicine man. This great man lived his life with pride, honor, and a deep love for his people and way of life. He left his legacy for his family to carry on. He passed along his hunting skills to my Gigi, his bravery as a warrior to my papa, and his ability to communicate with animals to me. Growing up, I remember the stories about my noble grandfather, the stories of courage, determination, kindness, and faith in the Great Spirit. This has helped me throughout my life, and especially in hard times. It has encouraged me to work hard, not give up, and trust in myself. I feel my ancestors around me, guiding me through my journey. Thank you, Papa, Gigi, Sitting Bull, and the Great Spirit. My very wise grandfather, Sitting Bull, once said, I am here by the will of the Great Spirit, and by his will I am chief. I know the Great Spirit is looking down upon me from above, and will hear what I say. Thank you for having me here today. I am very proud of my Lakotasu heritage, and honored to share a little of it with you. Please have a look at some pictures I brought and information about Ride and Shine on the table in front of the teepee. My Otaki Hawasi.
I come from the Great Plains, Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, parts of Colorado and Kansas. We had a big boundary. It was beautiful. We had a circle of life from the powers above and below and the four winds. We had a medicine wheel for our healing, for our body, one self. You are number one. Before you can help anybody, heal yourself first. We had a family because that family came from our body, the heart of everything that is, which is called the Sacred Hills, Black Hills. We came from that in our first sweat lodge, in our vision quest. Our culture was beautiful from the rock arts into what we do today. Our spiritual practices was a belief beyond that entitled us to life. On the fast horse side, I am from the horse family. The blue horse, my great-great-grandfather was there in 1868 and signed that treaty. From our Tioshpe, Wounded Knee, that's our plot. We were there before Bigfoot got there. Bigfoot came from the Unkpapas because they were ordered to go to the reservation. If not, they were going to be shot. I know those stories. I know who their ancestors are. So the Blue Horse told us, because we made a peace treaty and the United States wanted peace, we had the pipe there, and to keep that peace, because we have to respect that pipe. It's a peaceful pipe. It's a powerful pipe. Never to break war again. Never to pick up guns again. The Oglala to this day have never broken that, and I am part of that. I am an Ikchewichasha, Lakota, first before the non-Indian melting pot. That's who I am. When I go into a place to get something, I offer a prayer and tell them I'm going to get just what I need. No more, no less. I'll save some for the rest. Today, it's an honor to be here. Achi Akim, Mitaka Oyasi, all my relatives. My grandpa said, when we were going to the Bighorn battle, Thick Loaf Bread was going with us. We came from Slim Buttes, and we went on the east side of the Black Hills, where it's now called Buffalo Gap. And as we went in there to pray, because we were called in to go to the Bighorn battle with the Shaialas and the Arapahoes, to have a great meeting to determine the future of our people. That's why they were going up there. So as they were going, my Tioshpai was going into the Black Hills. They came over the ridge and they saw these people down there with covered wagons and long tables and these women with bonnets. And they were making stuff. And it smelled pretty good. And then he went like this, Lawachi, I'm hungry. That smells good. They made a war whoop and they ran down there to scare him away. And they grabbed them loaves of things that they saw on that table and that thick loaf bread. He took it, he tasted it. This is good bread. So he took that white flour sacks and loaded them up and they went on. Through the Black Hills to the Grease Grass to the Bighorn. And when they got there, they had a ceremony for him, a naming ceremony. Thick Loaf Bread, they named him that. But when Sitting Bull was there with Gall and Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull was a medicine man. He did a Sundance. And he saw Milihanska Upilo. Custer is coming in the 7th Cavalry. He told the people about it, that Custer was coming. It is said that before Custer got there, he stopped at Bear Butte, and they told him not to go up there on that sacred mountain. If you do, you're going to walk into infinity. Custer had no ears, no listening ears. He went up there and he came down and he rode into infinity at the Bighorn battle. He didn't listen. So Crazy Horse and Gull led that warriors in there to the battle of the Little Bighorn. This is how it went, and this is how the story goes. That was passed on to me.
Aloha, everyone. Aloha. Wow. This is quite the inner circle, isn't it? Quite the inner circle. In our tradition, it's not necessarily something that we do all the time to call out the name of our ancestors. But it is very important that we know who we come from in order to know what we're capable of. We believe that everything that our ancestors believed in, lived for, and died for sits inside of us. And that all that knowledge is there. That we don't have to look very far in order to find ourselves and the path from Keakua, the Creator, to where we stand now. I have many ancestors out there in the world, and one of my most famous ones is Papahana Omoku, Mother Earth. Kapu Wahine Hina, Grandmother Moon. Kukuna Okala, Grandfather Sun. They have many children, and they've gone out and in each of their own ways went to try and continue to keep the teaching. We've gone through our own wars in Hawaii. Many, many, many that was only in the last 1,000 years, in fact. Before that, all of our councils were done with our elders and elders only. There was never any bloodshed. And the reason for that was because blood or life was so sacred that it was not something that was taken. That there were circles that we sat and we did ho'oponopono, which is a way of coming to terms or making right relations. Finding that balance if our balance was off. And that went on for many, many years. And we were kind of safe out there in the middle of the ocean where we're at. But we do have stories of when our land, which is the mountaintops of the ancient continent, back in our ancient language, Na'olelo O'iwi, we call it Temuria, otherwise referred to as the land of Mu. It was once a continent that had 2,987 islands, which is what is in our archipelago, our section of the ocean. And if you was to look at a satellite picture, you could see the entire mountain region. And at a time in the past, within the last, I would think maybe about 40,000 years ago, when the earth flipped and the waters came up and California came up out of the old sea, Arizona came up out of the old sea, our lands became inundated with water, and many of our people at that time left to find new lands. And they traveled many, many areas in their canoes. I've actually found many of them in the middle of Arizona and out there in the world. We have the Hualapai Indians of Arizona. They named that mountain after the sister mountain they left behind. I live in Kona. The name of the mountain you see when you arrive at our airport is called Hualalai. Our ancestors, when we call them, they are our tutus, the ones that continue to hold that path open for us so that all of that wisdom can come down and continue to aid us and guide us on our path. It's really weird, you know, I come here, I'm 3/4 Hawaiian actually. I have a quarter Indian. You like that, huh? But it was always important. You see, my grandmother was the state of Hawaii's genealogist. She translated all of the ancient chants so that the ones nowadays, because we never had surnames that started about 4 generations back, 5 generations back. Before that, when the child was growing up and they could see, the old ones could watch what that child was really good at, and that child was taken and gifted to this elder who was the best Leviah fisherman, who was the best at this or that, and they became the best. And so the village basically was a village full of masters. Everybody did what they were the best at and what they enjoyed and loved the most. If I was a fisherman, I would trade my fish for my clothes or for the fruit out of the farmer. I wouldn't grow my own because this was their job. This is how we can continue to do the best that we can be. And we paid the most attention to that section of what we watched over or cared for. On my mother's side, my 5th great-grandfather was Chief Seattle. And he was a wonderful man. And we didn't know that till I was 11. A lot of things got revealed to me when I was 11. First of all, my grandfather or great-grandfather jumped ship. He came out of Seattle on a whaling ship. Could not stand the outright slaughter of our palaua, our whales. And so he jumped off the ship into Kealakekua Bay, which is where our family temple is at. Kealakekua means the path to God. My ancestors built Hikiau Heiau, which is the enlightened way. It's referred to as the enlightened way. It's always been women that held that temple. And that temple's been in our house for between 2,800 to 3,000 years now. My mother just passed away last week, Tuesday. We helped her journey on her way, and then I took the next journey and jumped on the next plane and came. What was wonderful about this is I always know all my tutus, a lot of medicine people in my house, and they always said, you know, we're not the one. Our job is to keep our body and our space and our dealings and our relationships clean and clear. That's what our job is. And may the healing spirit of the Creator flow through us when it's needed. So I've organized a mission. My mission is Aloha. Aloha is unconditional, non-judgmental love. We all got to live in this world together. We all know after looking at the last 25,000 years that nothing we've done previously have worked. We also know that a big part of a lot of the hakaka, the heaviness that sits on a lot of our tribes, was just outright fear. Outright fear. And our response to that. That response has annihilated many tribes, brought many of them to the brink of extinction. Many of them. It was meant, for us to go ahead and intermarry and intermix. You know why? Because by tomorrow, in your house, there will be 50 tribes. All the way, outright descent from every single tribe in the world. One day racism will end. And I know that in my lifetime, it will be. Peace is not something I seek. Peace is what I live. Love is not something that I seek to have in my life. Love is how I live my life. When I call you brother or sister, I really mean that. Because I know we all come from the same place. Above and beyond the places on this earth that we've been given to caretake, to watch over, to malama, to take care of. This is still Creator's land. Everyone on, everywhere we go. And you know what? As his children, we have the right to go ahead and pick up that rubbish, you know, to take care of it. And no matter where we're at. Sorry, my grandmother told me a long time, home is where the heart is, and I'm at home wherever I go. Mahalo, everybody.
We honor our elders, ancestors who've died, as we heal with each other and sit side by side. We honor our elders, ancestors of old, as we listen today and their stories are told. How they gave of their lives, how they fought to survive, so we could be alive and hold their vision high. We stand on the shoulders of those who have come before. Sahuli, Black Elk, Quanah Parker, Wavoka, Sitting Bull, Chief Seattle, Yatkin, Manuelito, Geronimo, Guarionesh, Pocahontas, Alfred Burr, Annie Clark, Cletty Bell, Hopi Flute Clan, Tom Epperson, Louis Royale, Gabriel Demont, Tecumseh, innocent children in thousands were slain. But who's here today to remember their names? To walk with the wisdom and knowledge of old. We must act for the ones whose lives went untold. How they gave of their lives, how they fought to survive, so we could be alive to hold their vision high. Their lives are in our hands. Their voice is in our songs. For we stand on the shoulders of those who have come before. Charlie Wright, Corbin Harney, Chief Crazy Horse, Kamehameha, Fred Thomas, Spotted Bear, William Clark, Gertie Larvey, Blue Horse, Chief Little Crow, Sadie Midlam Chandler, Ed Packhorse, Chief Burchard, Wakanagati, Richard Oakes, Popeye, Standing Bear, Honeheke, Maoro Koti. We honor our elders, ancestors who've died, as we heal with each other and sit side by side. We honor our elders, ancestors soldiers of old. As we listen today and their stories are told. I sing this song for those honored here today, and I sing for those who will never be forgotten. Nik Yahate Kan Misem.